Hi everybody. So let's do a little video on newborn fussiness. So it can be called a lot of things, but to simplify everything, I call it the newborn fussy period. So babies typically are pretty sleepy for the first 2 weeks, just because they just went through something traumatic, just like you did. And they are still waking up. They're jaundiced a little bit, which makes them extra sleepy. But typically by the 2 week period, they wake up. And when they wake up, they typically wake up with a pretty big vengeance. And so they go through a fussy time period. And so parents typically come in at their 2 week well check thinking something is wrong. The more experienced parents, meaning you've had more than one kid, have already been through it and maybe understand that this is normal. New parents are kind of overwhelmed by it. I was certainly overwhelmed by it, and I did not know about it. As a pediatrician, I did not know about it. This wasn't something we were sort of taught in residency. We were taught more about how to keep kids alive, not necessarily about their behavior. I learned about this in a book that I was reading on infant behavior. And it was invaluable. It changed everything for me once I understood what was going on. So everybody kind of has heard of this sort of witching hour from maybe their mom or their grandmother or maybe their sister or somebody. It's 5 to 7 p.m., baby's getting fussy, dad's just coming home from work, and the baby hates daddy. My husband was totally upset about this because he would come home and he'd just say, he doesn't like me. My son doesn't like me. And I was like, it's not you, but can you hold him anyway? I'm so tired. It doesn't have to be that time of day, but it typically is a time of day where it's anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a day where babies just get really hard to console. It's feeding typically will console them for a short period of time, and then they're back to being fussy. I always warn moms not to get into the cycle of overfeeding just to calm them, because they will just keep eating. You put them on your breast, you give them another bottle, they'll just keep eating, and then you will actually get a problem out of that. They'll get a distended tummy. They will get gas. Now they're super gassy, Dr. Patterson. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, they're fussing and they're swallowing air, right? So the more they fuss, the more they swallow air, the more gassy they are. But the gas isn't causing them to fuss, right? The fussing is causing them to be more gassy. So don't think that gassiness is always painful. And I'll spend another sort of video talking about the abnormal fussiness, but this is the normal fussiness. They can look pretty dramatic when they're being fussy. They can wail. And as you get to be further into parenting, you'll know the different types of cries, especially after you get through that first round of shots. But this fussy period, it starts at about 2 weeks and it gets more intense around 4 to 6 weeks. That means that fussiness gets more often and louder, and harder to console. And then once it peaks, it gets better. So typically by 2 months to 3 months, we're dealing with a lot less of it, and you're getting a little bit more sleep. Now, not every baby goes through it. You can have what we call the trick baby. The trick baby is the baby that is golden and doesn't experience this and makes you have a second baby really fast because you don't experience fussiness. But for the majority, we end up all going through this. And, I used to stroll my baby through the house. I would sit on one of those exercise balls and bounce up and down. I mean, you do what works. I had one of those old school bouncy seats, and that was like golden for us. Like, it worked really, not the vibrating part. We actually just bounced it with our foot. because the motion is incredible for babies. That's why people always drive their babies around in cars, because the motion is super helpful. However, the minute you stop motion, the baby wakes back up. That's why, mamas a lot of times will get the little slings and walk around with their babies in slings, because babies are so used to being rocked to sleep. That's how they were for the last 9 months. So they love motion. The problem is you don't get into deep sleep when they're in motion. They get into light sleep. It's like when you fall asleep in an airplane or a car, you're like kind of drowsy, but you don't get great sleep. So we need to like slowly remove the motion and let them fall asleep still, in a still sleep, so that they actually get to deep sleep. So I just want y'all to be aware, you can do gas drops, but you don't have to do that. That's not going to solve it. Neither is switching formulas, neither is pulling back on what you're eating and changing all the foods in your diet. And not eating spicy foods and all the things that we like. One day it works and the next day it doesn't work. It can be a frustrating game doing that, because you're like, oh my gosh, it worked today. And then suddenly it doesn't work. That's just because you have a normal baby. I'll do a second part to this about the not normal fussy baby, and when you do need to change your diet or look at bringing the baby into the physician about like, this is not normal. And what do we do? What is colic? Why is this baby screaming out of control? And that's a very different experience. To just remember 1 to 3 hours is normal. For the most part, it's, take deep breaths. A baby is not going to hurt itself just by crying, okay? If you need to take a break, take a break, okay? Put the baby in a safe spot. It's okay to let the baby scream. Go outside, take a breath, get in the shower, do something to just, decompress. It can be a lot, okay? So if you need to do that, that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad parent. You just need to get your sanity back. You're sleep deprived, you're tired. It's okay. That is a much safer thing to do than push through and try to keep calming the baby when you're about to lose it, okay? So just remember that, because everyone has had a moment where they're like, I don't know how to calm this baby. Just put the baby down. It's okay. And take a moment for yourself. It's going to be okay. We've all been there. Many parents have had that moment. It's going to be okay. So the fussy baby is a normal baby for the most part, but watch part 2 to see when it's not normal. Okay?